Basketball is an intermittent, high-intensity sport requiring both physical agility and mental acuity. Energy demands during the basketball season are substantial and may be even higher during off-season training. Choosing foods that will provide the energy to support competition and training is essential and can also be quite challenging. Unlike high-level college or professional basketball players who have the means and opportunity to eat a proper diet, smaller school college players and high school athletes have variable access to resources. This chapter will focus on the principles of fuel selection in a variety of situations with the goal of accommodating all players. Daily energy needs. The energy requirements of high school basketball players can be considerable. In a recent study by Silva et al., for energy expenditure in elite high school-aged female and male basketball players during the season was measured to be over 3,500 and 4,600 kcal/day, respectively. Although total energy intake is important to counteract weight loss during the season, the source of the calories is critical to provide the muscle with the right type of fuel. Carbohydrate. The muscle's preferred fuel during high-intensity activities such as basketball is carbohydrate. The body stores carbohydrate as glycogen in the liver and skeletal muscle. Carbohydrate stored in the liver maintains blood glucose between meals. The liver stores between 75–100 grams of carbohydrate, enough to maintain blood glucose during a 12-hour fast. Most people have used up the majority of their liver glycogen by the time they awaken in the morning, which is why it's so important for athletes to eat before a morning practice. Skeletal muscle stores an additional 300–400 grams of carbohydrate. Unlike liver glycogen, the muscle uses its supply of carbohydrate to fuel exercise, and training can nearly double the amount of glycogen the muscle can store. This is advantageous because the more glycogen in the muscle, the longer an athlete can sprint, jump, and run. When muscle glycogen stores are full, most athletes have enough to fuel 90,100 minutes of high-intensity activity. Terms such as hitting the wall or bonking are used to describe the phenomenon that happens when an athlete's glycogen stores run low. While individual practices and games may not be enough to deplete muscle glycogen, inadequate carbohydrate intake coupled with daily training can deplete muscle glycogen over the course of several days. This leaves a player fatigued or with a feeling of heavy legs. Basketball players should consume a high carbohydrate diet. That is to say that at least 55% of total calories in the diet should come from food rich in carbohydrates such as fruits, vegetables, bread, pasta, and rice. Most sports dietitians recommend carbohydrate intake based on body mass to ensure an athlete consumes adequate energy from carbohydrate. The range of carbohydrate intake suggested for basketball players is 5–7 grams per kilogram body weight. The amount will vary depending upon playing time and the time of year. Protein. Protein is important for building and maintaining lean body mass. Although many athletes take supplements and make efforts to increase dietary protein to build muscle mass, this is usually unnecessary if they are eating a well-balanced diet with sufficient energy and protein intake spaced throughout the day. Research shows that protein intake of 1.8 grams per kilogram body weight is the upper limit for muscle protein synthesis. For a 63 kilograms player, that's about 115 grams of protein. A player that weighs 82 kilograms may need up to 150 grams. As shown in the sample menu, this is easily met with adequate energy intake. While eating protein above this amount is not harmful for healthy people, it often displaces energy from carbohydrate in the diet, which, as discussed above, is the muscle's preferred fuel. While the muscles will utilize protein when carbohydrate is low, this is an inefficient metabolic process and will leave the athlete feeling run down and fatigued. The recommendation for daily protein intake for basketball players is 1.4–1.7 grams per kilogram of body mass. Fat. Dietary fats are important for the synthesis of hormones and cell membranes, as well as proper immune function. Athletes should strive to eat heart-healthy fats such as monounsaturated fats as well as omega-3 fats and avoid saturated fats and trans fats. Energy intake from fat should make up the remainder of calories after protein and carbohydrate recommendations are met. Pregame meals. The goal for any pre-competition meal is to help with the body's energy needs while eliminating the distraction of hunger and reducing the risk of gastrointestinal problems. Appropriate meals or foods should be high in carbohydrate, low in fat, and low in fiber. A good rule of thumb for carbohydrate is the following equation: X equals grams of carbohydrate. For example, a player weighing 68 kilograms and eating 3 hours prior to the game could eat 68 kilograms x 3 hours equals 204 grams of carbohydrate. This would be equivalent to a small meal including a turkey sandwich, an ounce of pretzels, a granola bar, and 1 liter of Gatorade thirst quencher. On the other hand, if this player is eating 1 hour prior to the game, only about 70 grams of carbohydrate should be consumed. An appropriate snack may be 1 liter of Gatorade thirst quencher, and an ounce of pretzels. It is very important that each player find what foods and beverages work best for her or him by experimenting before and during practices. Each person is a bit different, and one player's lucky meal may leave her teammate with stomach cramps. Fueling during games. Basketball games last 32-48 minutes of total playing time, depending on the level. Although it is unlikely that a player will drain his muscle and liver glycogen stores, supplementing with carbohydrate during the game may help maintain performance in the fourth quarter. Research shows that both cognitive function 5 and sprint speed 1 are maintained in basketball-type protocols when subjects are supplemented with carbohydrate rather than a placebo. Again, players should experiment during practices to find what foods and beverages work best for them. However, Gatorade Thirst Quencher, sports gels or chews, portions of sports bars, or oranges have been used by many. The recommended amount of carbohydrate to consume to maintain performance is 30-60 grams divided by age. Therefore, given the game duration, an athlete should find the best solution to take in 30-60 grams of carbohydrate over the course of a game. Using Gatorade Thirst Quencher, for example, 16-32 ounces will meet the carbohydrate needs and provide fluid and electrolytes. Importantly, all forms of carbohydrate supplementation should also include fluid replacement, as dehydration is detrimental to basketball performance. Fortunately, basketball lends itself to natural breaks in the action. Timeouts, breaks between quarters, and halftime are opportunities for players to refuel and rehydrate. As mentioned previously, consuming foods or fluids should be practiced during training to determine the most effective strategy. To determine an individual's sweat rate, weigh your players before and after a practice session in the same clothing, after toweling off excess sweat. If they lost weight, they didn't drink enough fluid and should consume an additional 16 ounces per pound of body weight lost in the next practice. Each player should aim to lose lesser than 2% body weight during practices and games, and the amount that each player will need to maintain hydration will be different. Likewise, each player may prefer and tolerate different forms of carbohydrate. Players should be encouraged to find the combination of foods and fluids that works best to maintain hydration and energy while reducing the risk of stomach cramps. Recovery. Recovery nutrition is very important when players have less than 24 hours between games or training sessions. In the 30-60 minutes immediately following exercise, the muscles used during exercise are especially sensitive to amino acids and glucose in the blood and are able to use them for muscle protein synthesis and glycogen restoration, respectively. Eating a meal or drinking a recovery shake during this window of time allows the muscle to recover its glycogen stores much more quickly than the same meal eaten 2 or 3 hours after exercise. Recommended carbohydrate intake is 1.0-1.2 grams of carbohydrate, kg body weight, and about 20 grams protein for a 68 kilograms person. This would be about 82 grams carbohydrate. Some players prefer liquid meals for recovery, as they may not have an appetite following competition. Many commercial recovery products are available. However, chocolate milk and other foods are also appropriate. Although it is important to consume carbohydrate and protein during the time immediately following competition, players should make a point of eating a well-balanced meal within 2 hours to give the muscles another dose of fuel. Athletes should also rehydrate after practices and games with about 20-24 ounces of fluid, preferably with sodium, for every pound of body weight lost. Tournament play. The principles of per-game meals and recovery should be followed for teams entering tournament play. Most basketball teams participating in tournament play will not play more than 1 game per day. However, they may play back-to-back games with less than 24 hours to recover. In this scenario, it becomes essential that players are provided with foods that supply carbohydrate to restore their muscle glycogen reserves, protein to help with muscle protein synthesis, and fluid to rehydrate. Table 2 provides examples of foods that can help kickstart recovery. Teams that must play more than 1 game per day or play in the evening and again in the morning should consume per-game meals that are high in carbohydrate, low in fat, and low in fiber. Breakfasts may include toast or bagels with jam, a small stack of pancakes with syrup, or ready-to-eat cereal with skim milk. Lunches or dinners may consist of pasta with marinara sauce, a low-fat sandwich or wrap, or soup with bread. Again, the goal of a per-game meal is to provide energy without causing gastrointestinal distress. Summary: developing the skills needed to become a great basketball player requires endless hours of time spent shooting, passing, ball handling, and conditioning. Ignoring proper nutrition is like building a high-performance sports car and putting the wrong gas in the tank. It cannot operate optimally unless its engine is given high-grade fuel. Such is the case with athletes. Although the body can function on junk food, it will not perform as well as it could when given the proper types of food in the correct amounts at the optimal times. Eating a variety of whole grains, fruits and vegetables, lean sources of protein, and healthy fats will provide high-quality fuel for the best possible performance.